I'm Don Mitchell. Welcome back to Business Basics, a book that prepares you to be a great leader of a company that adds customers 20 times faster, expands and reduces costs 20 times faster, and also eliminates investments 20 times faster. So the point is you can accomplish a great deal more than you would otherwise imagine. Today we'll continue to look at ways to add customers extremely rapidly, more than 20 times your size now, and in this case we'll be looking at one of several techniques we've been exploring, which is to add authority, and this will be from lesson 12 of Business Basics. Let me again, as always, quote from the Bible, Matthew chapter 7 verses 28 and 29 from the New King James Version. And so it was, when Jesus had ended these sayings, that the people were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. When the President of the United States meets with a prominent citizen in the Oval Office and asks the person to quit his job, to sell all of his or her financial assets into a so-called blind trust, to go through a painful public disclosure process, and to sacrifice millions of dollars in income to take a low-paying government job where it doesn't much matter who does the work, almost everyone who is asked will say yes. Why? It's hard to turn down the leader of the world's most powerful country, even for a person who disagrees with the president's policies and has a lot to lose personally. Other kinds of authority matter as well. Research has shown that people will almost always obey a person wearing a white lab coat who tells them to turn up the dial on the electric current connected to a test subject in a, quote, learning, end quote, experiment to a level that the equipment indicates is, quote, lethal, end quote. Although such research only simulates sending and receiving powerful electric shocks, the person turning up the dial doesn't know that. There's no risk of harm to the person writhing in apparent agony while calling for the shocks to stop. Some surgeons have performed the wrong operations despite the nurses and attendants knowing that a mistake was being made. Yet the nurses remain silent. Why? Nurses are trained to follow doctors' orders, no matter what. In the face of authority, most of us lack the self-confidence to follow our own perceptions and good judgment in pursuit of what's best for all concerned. It's as if giving people impressive offices dressed in lab coats or hanging stethoscopes around their necks makes such people into more than mere humans. But that's exactly what happens in our perceptions. In reality, the person is no more competent or careful than before the props arrived. Crest toothpaste brand managers appreciate the psychological trait of deferring to authority and capitalized on it for many years by acquiring an endorsement for Crest from the American Dental Association that the toothpaste, when combined with good dental care, would reduce tooth decay. The brand's volume zoomed after Crest gained and advertised this unique endorsement. When a new movie is released, producers put the hardest-hitting comments from the most positive reviews, along with the name of the reviewer and his or her affiliation, into their advertising. Moviegoers who trust a particular critic will be impressed, and many will choose to watch the movie. If you want to learn more about authority and how purchasing can be ethically effective by applying it, I suggest you read Influence by Robert B. Cialdini. What benefits come from adding authority to stimulate demand for industry offerings? First, your offerings will be noticed sooner, more often, and more positively by potential customers who want more reliable choices. Second, if customers need or can use what you offer, they will probably decide they want to try your offerings. Third, if you fulfill your offer in an acceptable way, customers will probably keep buying and tell others to work with you. Fourth, if demand is stimulated enough, you will also grow revenues faster than costs and assets, increasing your profit and cash flow as a percentage of revenues. 5, if you grasp a powerfully unique form of authority, such as an endorsement from the world's leading expert, you will have reduced the impact of competitors on you by making their offerings seem inferior due to their sources of authority being less impressive. 6, your pricing power will increase because you face less competition for the customers who are most likely to appreciate your offering. For instance, a pharmaceutical product that's been found to be safe and effective by the American Food and Drug Administration will probably sell more than 100 times the price of an alternative that lacks the same authority. 7. Mass marketing effectiveness will be improved. With enough of an authority advantage, competitors' marketing will be remembered by most potential customers as having come from you and your offering. So what is the strategic lesson for expanding your market by 20 times through adding authority? Fully develop all sources of authority for the market you can serve, or you'll be leaving the door open to continuing new entrants who can create authority advantages against you. Applying this lesson often means that a multi-authority strategy will work best when built around brand names that express or suggest superior qualities. Crest found its authority base eroding after the ADA began to endorse other fluoride-based toothpaste. The market grew, but Crest's market share dropped. Crest should have immediately sought to maintain its early authority advantage by adding new attributes such as better whitening, enamel strengthening, reducing sensitivity to hot and cold, and killing more germs on the gums. Once such superior attributes were added, Crest could have found authorities to endorse its approach to supplying the new benefits. The following sections address questions you should consider to locate and to determine the potential for adding authority to expand your market. So first, what authority-related benefits can you offer because the market is underdeveloped? Here I'd like to quote from the book of Mark, chapter 2, verse 22. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine bursts the wineskins. The wine is spilled and the wineskins are ruined. But new wine must be put into new wineskins. Cervical cancer can be almost totally eliminated by routine physical examinations and laboratory tests. Vaccines have also been developed to protect women from being infected by the virus strains that cause this type of cancer. Despite the potential to prevent such cancers, the original Pap smear test unfortunately provided a lot of mistaken results. Many women were told they might have cervical cancer who did not, and some women with cervical cancer were incorrectly told that they were disease-free. When Cytec developed a more expensive but more accurate diagnostic test, few physicians used it at first because insurance companies wouldn't cover the increased cost. Few women were willing to pay for the test either, despite the obvious value of gaining more timely warnings and avoiding unnecessary fear. Cytec eventually solved this market-limiting problem by finding physicians with eminent reputations who persuaded health insurers to pay for the more expensive test. After that change occurred, the market for the new test geometrically expanded. Your assignment is, while your industry size is small, look for ways to deliver performance advantages and other benefits that authorities will favor and endorse. Next, let's look at what new forms of authority can you offer that will impress unconvinced potential customers. Here I'd like to quote from 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 24. Therefore, show to them and before the churches the proof of your love and of our boasting on your behalf. One person's authority can be another person's humbug. To gain the most credibility for your offering, several sources of authority may be needed. As the Crest toothpaste example demonstrates, authority doesn't just come from individuals who hold positions that inspire reverence and compliance. Authority can also come from, quote, proof, end quote, that an offering works. A great demonstration can provide such authority. In the early days, as an ADA-endorsed product, Crest ran experiments that measured the incidence of cavities where half a school or half a family used Crest, and the rest used toothpaste without fluoride. Naturally, the Crest groups always had fewer cavities. Some advertisers take providing authority too far by hiring actors and actresses to tout their offerings who have merely played roles or characters who have authority. An example that many older Americans may remember was the actor Robert Young, who played the starring role of Marcus Welby, MD, who appeared in advertising for Sanka Coffee. So many people associated the performer with his authority role that such advertisements may have worked better with some customers than if the same factual claim had been made based on a demonstration. The ethics of such approaches are iffy, of course, at best. Some enterprising companies have profited by persuading politicians to dedicate specific days for certain purposes, such as Mother's Day. Without such, quote, official, end quote, recognition, do you expect that many millions of people would feel guilty if they didn't send a card, call, or purchase flowers from mom then? Your assignment is to develop new Ethical forms of authority that add credibility to your attributes and draw in more customers. So next, I would like to look at the question of how can you use new forms of authority to recreate the excitement of when the market was smaller. Here I'd like to quote from the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 19. Now the two of them went until they came to Bethlehem. And it happened, when they had come to Bethlehem, that all the city was excited because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" The simplest way to recreate excitement is by finding and communicating new reasons to use an offering. For instance, fluoride-based toothpaste eventually added brighteners to make teeth look whiter. Realizing that some people cared even more about the whiteness of their teeth than about avoiding cavities, consumer products companies began offering less expensive substitutes for the tooth bleaching that dentists provide. In developing such substitutes, new sources of authority were tapped. Since the ADA wasn't likely to provide an endorsement based on whiteness, when Crest white strips were introduced, this brand instead employed before and after demonstrations and measurements to lend authority to their product's effectiveness. Your assignment is to locate new benefits and authoritative ways to demonstrate such benefits. Now let's look at how can you profitably benefit from increasing authority. In this case, I'd like to quote from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 4. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body, the produce of your ground, and the increase of your herds, the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flocks. There are two sides to this question. First, the amount of increased purchasing that occurs. Second, the amount of cost reductions for adding more authority. Gaining more authority often doesn't have to be expensive, just as long as you don't have to meet tough government tests such as those for efficacy and safety of new pharmaceuticals. You'll be pleased to learn that many individual authorities are glad to provide their endorsements at little or no cost. Authors seek such advantages by asking authorities they don't know to write promotional blurbs for the dust jackets of their new books. The authorities are often honored to be asked and are usually satisfied with receiving some publicity in return. Lack of imagination is often the only limit to adding more authority. Here's an intriguing example. When author Robert G. Allen wrote a book claiming that anyone could become rich by buying real estate despite having no personal money to invest, some journalists thought Mr. Allen was making a false claim. One skeptic challenged Mr. Allen to come to the journalist's town with no money and to buy any real estate within 3 days. Mr. Allen accepted the challenge, and the reporter followed Mr. Allen as he successfully demonstrated his claim. The success created an astonishing increase in book and seminar sales for Mr. Allen. Having learned an important lesson about demonstrating results, Mr. Allen followed this well-publicized event with similar demonstrations where unemployed people Mr. Allen coached made the real estate purchases with no money of their own. Press reports again provide the authenticity that made the claims resonate more powerfully. So your assignment is to test your best ideas by garnering more authority in a small community. Measure the results to find out what works best, then experiment again, emphasizing what worked best in another small community. Continue to test and measure in this way. As soon as you find an authority expanding combination that works very effectively for increasing purchases, start employing that combination in geographic areas you can serve well. Next, we turn to how can you improve authority with the best potential customers first. Here I'd like to quote from the book of Genesis, chapter 43, verse 11. And their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds." Some customers are actually better connected and more highly esteemed than others. Some of such people routinely share their valued opinions with thousands of other customers through e-letters, blogs, social networks, and other mass communication methods. Individuals used by such better networked influencers may account for less than 1% of total consumption, but their views may sway more than 70% of product users. In the case of Crest, Procter & Gamble could have conducted a survey to locate which ordinary toothpaste users most influence brand choices before placing any mass advertising, and invite such influencers to check out Crest's cavity-fighting qualities. The influencers had been pleased with the results they experienced. Influencers' comments could have become even more persuasive To some of these people, they influenced than the official tests were. So your assignment here is to investigate which customers influence the most other customers, then identify what forms of authority would help to turn such influencers into raving fans. Now I'd like to look at the question of how can you change your business model to permit faster development of authority. Here I'm going to quote from the book of Numbers, chapter 27, verse 20. And you shall give some of your authority to him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. Cybron Dental Specialties, a firm Carol Coles and I wrote about in The Ultimate Competitive Advantage, primarily grew in its early days by acquiring and expanding innovative products and services that were more effective than existing offerings. Almost all such new offerings were virtually unknown when Cybron initially acquired them. How did Cybron spread the word about their new offerings? The firm's officers spent as much time as possible with the most respected dentists. Through such connections, the Cybron executives arranged for free trials of the new offerings to be conducted by such dentists who regularly avoided dental conventions. At subsequent conventions, the dentists were authorized to present formal papers about their trial results to the other dentists. If the feedback from such dental trials wasn't strong enough to excite the dentists, Cybron improved its offerings and conducted new trials before making the offerings generally available. So your assignment here is to re-examine all part of your business model to see how you could accelerate adding authority, test your better ideas to see how they would work before making major commitments. And finally, how can you locate undiscovered high potential customers who are providing more powerful forms of authority? Here we're going to look at the book of Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of God is living and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the division of soul and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. There is usually only a small difference between adding just enough authority to make a market somewhat larger, providing enough more authority to make a market enormous. Just one additional source of authority may be enough to cause a huge expansion, particularly when new types of active buyers are attracted. In the case of Crest, the ADA endorsement was so powerful in part because the ADA had never endorsed any toothpaste before, so this endorsement was viewed as bigger news than if the ADA had regularly endorsed toothpaste. This unprecedented step surely suggested to many people that Crest was also big news. Had Crest brand managers merely done all the other work they did to establish authority for its benefits, the brand's sales would have been much smaller without the ADA endorsement. So your final assignment is to look for authority in high-powered places no one in your industry has ever accessed. Although no candy maker had ever considered sending free blueberry jelly beans to the presidential inauguration before, taking this step after President Reagan was elected certainly worked well. After it became better known that former U.S. President Ronald Reagan loved jelly beans, sales of the venerable candy zoomed. Okay, so thank you again. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I look forward to speaking with you again soon as we look at more ways to add vast numbers of customers. So may God bless you, your family, and all you do in the name of Jesus. In the meantime, goodbye for now.